Alright guys, welcome back to another episode. Hope that you're doing well. If you're new, my name is Erin and I have a background in the fitness industry and the health industry, and my whole goal with this podcast slash YouTube channel is to help you improve your life in some way, mentally and physically, and if that also happens emotionally and or spiritually, then that's great. But my main focus is just to help yourself make a better life through, either taking what I have to say and implementing that, or just giving you the realization that you're not walking through things alone and that life is relatable and being vulnerable and real and honest with you guys. So that being said, I want to say thank you so much to everybody that watched last week's episode. If you haven't watched it, please go back and do. It's labeled my first marriage and how it made me who I am today. That has gotten the most amount of views out of anything I've posted so far, and that was very hard for me to record. It's very vulnerable. It feels awkward sharing personal details of your life for the world on the internet, but hopefully it resonated with someone in some way, so I just wanted to say thank you. That being said, it also, if you go back and watch the episode, it also ties into what I'm going to be talking about today. And today I'm going to be talking about what it was like opening a business all by myself at 23 years old. I'll talk about how it happened, what that looked like, and I'm also going to talk about why it closed and what that looked like as well, and just kind of give the whole journey of the gym. So that being said, those of you that don't know, I owned a CrossFit gym from 2013 until 2020. So it was almost we closed in February of 2020. July of 2020 would have been, 7 years. So it was like 6.5 years. So I say 7 years because it was a little over 6.5. But that being said, I'll kind of give the backstory of how it started and where it came from. So I have always been involved in health and fitness, or fitness, I should say. I have played sports, numerous sports, my whole entire life. I was an elite level, all-star cheerleader. I did that for 14 plus years, and I coached people in that space. Then I also did soccer in high school. I ran track and I pole vaulted in high school. And I just tried to do as much as I could and was always playing sports, was always active, was always doing things. So when I got out of high school and went into college, I didn't play any sports in college because I blew out both of my knees cheerleading, and just was like, I'm only 18 and I want to be healthy for the rest of my life, so I just kind of put a pin in that. And as you know, in the last video, I got married when I was 19 and we got divorced by the time I was 21. I was in the middle of trying to get into nursing school. I finished all my prerequisites and I was waiting, and I just kind of didn't know what to do with my life. It felt like my life had fallen apart, obviously. And really got back into working out again. When I was going through the divorce and then after the divorce, something that I made sure to do was to work out every single day. At the time, I was working at a chiropractic office and we got a 1-hour lunch break. And so I would run over to Planet Fitness and I would do their little 30-minute circuit thing. I would go as heavy as I could. And then I would run back to the office. I would baby wipe, shower in the bathroom, get dressed, and then I would eat my lunch, and then I would work the rest of the day. And I did that every single day. And then I was going to school at the same time. I also decided while I was waiting to get into nursing school, because I didn't want to lose my scholarship, to have credits, I decided that I would pursue getting a personal training certificate. They had a program for that. So I was taking step aerobic classes, weightlifting classes, business classes, how to group coach, all these things. So I was doing all that through the college. And everything is just what I was doing. Well, a couple months after the divorce was final, so we were separated for like 3 or 4 months, and then the divorce was finalized, and then 3 or 4 months after the divorce was finalized, I started dating somebody, and after a while I got pretty serious, and I decided that I didn't want to go to college for nursing. I just wanted to live my life. And he was in the military, and he had a temporary, what did he have? It was like a tech school for his job that was like 4 months long, and it was in Virginia. And I remember I went there to drop him off, and that was the intention. I was going to drive him there, drop him off, and fly back home. And I got there, and I was like, I don't want to leave. I had never lived anywhere else. I had never really done anything by myself. Like, I lived by myself when I was 17, but I was dating, and like, my parents were still there. They were over all the time. Like, it wasn't by myself. So I called my parents, and I was like, hey, I want to do this. I want to try this. I want to try living by myself here in a different state, and I want to grow up. That's kind of what I felt like. I felt like I needed to find myself again, and I needed to grow up. So I used my savings for a deposit on a little apartment, and because he was in a tech school, so he had to stay on base, on post, and go through his training and his classes and stuff. So he couldn't live or be off of the base. And I wanted to live by myself. I wanted to do my thing by myself. And so he helped me. Within a couple days, I found a little apartment complex, and they were all like ground level. And it was very cheap. It was what I could afford. So I think it was a matter of 4 days. I found an apartment. I found a job, because I had to have a job to pay for the apartment and food and everything that I was doing. And so I used my savings for, not all of it, but I used my savings for the deposit. I had my truck there. I'd driven my truck out there. I was going to let him borrow it at the time, because I had my grandparents' car that I could use back at home, since it was only 4 months. So I had my truck. So I had a vehicle to drive around, and I just went for it. So I got a 300 square foot furnished apartment. So it came with the couch. It came with the like hide-a-bed. It pulled down from the wall. I already had the mattress and everything. And then I didn't have anything. I just had a bag that we had packed for like, I think we had made the trip like a 2-week trip, because I went and met his family in Illinois, and we just took our time getting there, because it was in Virginia. So I went from New Mexico to Virginia, and we drove, and we made it a whole trip. So I had a decent amount of clothes, but I didn't have like silverware, dishes, cleaning supplies, anything. And I didn't have a ton of money, because I had just gone through a divorce. And so I went to Goodwill, I bought a huge like box TV from Goodwill, a table, dishes. I got everything from Goodwill for like $100. It was incredible. And I lived there for 4 months, and I did life, and I worked a job. And while I was doing that, I finished my personal training certificate online. So what I would do is my shift, I worked at a restaurant, and my shift was just the lunch shift. So I worked for like 4 or 5 hours right in the middle of the day. It was the busiest time of day, and we got to keep 100% of our tips. So I would wake up pretty late. I'm kind of a night person. I would wake up at like 10 or 11, no, like 10. I think I had to be at work at 11, and then I would work until 4 or 5, and then he would get off of training if he got off, and we would do dinner and hang out, because he had a curfew. I had to be back at 8. And then after I dropped him back off, maybe it was like 9, I know it was a little bit later, I would drop him off, and then I would go to the gym, and I would work out. And this is where I found CrossFit. It was the Anytime Fitness, and CrossFit was kind of getting, it was a little bit blowing up back then. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I love the way these girls look. I want to look and perform like these girls. And so I started doing CrossFit workouts at an Anytime Fitness. Everybody thought it was crazy. So I would work out and I would get done at like 11 or midnight. And then I would come home and I would shower and eat and study. And I'd go to bed at like 1 or 2. And then I'd wake up again at like 10 the next morning. So it was a really weird schedule, but it worked really well for me. So I did that for 4 months, came back to New Mexico. Actually took my personal training certificate test and failed. I'm a really bad test taker. I get test anxiety. Well, then the person I was dating at the time got PCS to Arizona. That's where their job was going to be. And I decided to move to Arizona. So I moved with that person to Arizona. And I was like, I'll just find a job there. So I started coaching cheerleading. Again, I was specifically coaching tumbling. And I spent all my time there coaching tumbling and studying again. I started studying again and just kind of getting into it. And I really just, hold on. Okay, sorry. So, I was studying, I was getting into that. We ended up breaking up, I don't remember after how long. I went back to New Mexico. Excuse me, sorry. And I felt kind of hopeless. I didn't know what to do. I was living with my parents again. And I just felt lost. I felt like I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know what to do. And I remember when I was living at home, my mom and I would just get to talking. And she would be like, you are such a good coach. She'd be like, you're such a good teacher. Which I didn't feel like it. But she felt like I was. She was like, you just need your own gym. You just need your own place where you can, thrive and flourish and do your own thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, Mom, like, sure. I was 23. I was like, yeah, okay, great. Well, my mom has owned her own business for 34 years now. And it's funny because one day she came up to me and she was like, you're going to open your own gym. And I was like, what? No, definitely not. I was like, how could I even afford it? B, I'm 23. Like, what do I know about owning a business? And C, like, I have to pass my certified personal training test. Like, I have so many things I have to do. And I just remember she was like, no, like, we're going to make it happen. And she was like, there's a couple, so it was like a complex where her business was, and it was all warehouses. So there was like auto body shops. There's like a baseball batting cage thing. There's just all these shops in this complex. And she was like, there's a couple empty warehouses. And she was like, let's just walk through them and let's just see how much it is. Like, I'm really, like, we're close with the owner of the complex. Like, let's just see. And I was like, okay, Mom, like, sure, right? Like, it's one of those things when your parents encourage you. Sorry, the joys of kids. I love them. So anyway, we met with the owner, property management person, and he walked us through a couple spaces. There was one on the end and then another one that was hidden behind like an independent building. So my mom's business was like its own independent building in the complex. There was another independent building, then there was a strip of them, and then another strip on the other side. So there was one on the end that was available that you could see from the street on the strip. And then there was one in the middle that you could not see from the street that was also available. And they were both in pretty bad shape, but they were just big, empty, blank canvases. And my mom was like, Erin, like, I think you should put a gym in here. And I was like, I have zero equipment. I have zero clientele. Like, I don't even know how we would do this. Like, the money to get those things, the money to fix this place up to make it a usable building. I was like, that's just how. And she was like, let's sit down. She was like, let's come up with a 3, 5, and 10-year business plan. Let's write a letter to people and ask for investors with a fixed interest rate, and you have to pay it off in a certain amount of time. And let's also ask for like donations. Like if anybody wants to, donate it to help you without, getting paid back anything. And she was like, then we just get to hustling. Like we get to calling people, we get to talking people, we get to mailing letters. Like we do all these things. And I was like, oh, okay, like we can do that. But like, how much is my rent going to be every month for this place? Like, how is this going to happen? Like I'm 23 years old. Like, how are they going to let me do this? Getting a business license, etc. And my mom was like, we're going to pray about it. She was like, we're going to pray about it. And we're going to see how much they offer us, like for this space. And I don't remember the exact number. I could probably sit down and do the math. But I remember one night she was like, I believe we're going to get it for like so many cents per square foot. And I was like, that's insane. That's that's unheard of. Because it was a 3,000 square foot warehouse. So we decided to ask them for the one in the middle because he had said that it would be cheaper because you couldn't see it from the street. So it's hidden, so you're not going to get like foot traffic from people seeing you. You're going to have to go out and do it yourself. So they would make it cheaper for that reason. So we were like, okay, we'll go with that one. And I remember we prayed about it. We went to bed that night. And the next day he called and he offered it to us for exactly what my mom said per square foot. And you guys, I cannot make this up. It ended up being $500 a month for a 3,000 square foot warehouse. That was my rent. Insane. It was only something God could do. I don't know. There's no other explanation for it. $500 a month for 3,000 square feet of a warehouse, of an industrial warehouse space. It had a bathroom, it had a water fountain. Crazy. So we immediately were like, yes, absolutely, we're gonna jump on it. And then I was like, okay, now I have to pass my test. So I'll spare over that. I ended up passing my test. So that was like a check on the box. And then we just had to get to work with really putting it out there and seeing if we could get investors to get equipment. And I used all my savings at the time to do the repairs on the building. And so we had to get paint, we had to re-drywall the entire lower half of the building. We had to power wash the entire warehouse, including the ceiling, and to wash the floors. We had to, it was a huge undertaking, and all thanks to my parents. Like my dad is in construction and he did all the repairs. He and I worked together. Endless hours getting this thing up to snuff to have people be able to walk in the door. And then kudos to my mom on the business side who typed up, the letters that we, mailed to people and handed investors and helped me make a business plan and really taught me the numbers and how to do things and what that looked like. And we got the business in like April, like we got the go ahead, and they gave us 3 months free rent to get the business started. It's crazy. I still can't wrap my head around it. So the first 3 months I had the building, I didn't have to pay any rent. And it was all because they were like, well, we know it's a lot of work and we want to help you get your business started. We want you to be successful. And I just went to work. I reached out to family, I reached out to friends, I reached out to other people we knew that own businesses, and ended up getting some investors and some donations. And then I just played it really smart. We got the bare necessities for the gym. We used, instead of buying like a Rogue rig, which is like a really fancy brand of rigging that was thousands of dollars, I had a friend at the time that worked like at a steel place, and we made a deal where I just paid him for materials, and instead of labor, he got a free gym membership. So he built our entire rig for like $500. It was huge rig for like $500. And then I just got the bare minimum amount of equipment, like barbells, med balls, weights and stuff, I think for like 10 people. And the goal was start cheap, and then as we get more members, we'll pour that back into the gym, and then we'll upgrade equipment and we'll buy more equipment, and we'll go from there, which is exactly what we did. And so with lots of sweat and tears and long days and long nights, July 1st of 2013, we finally opened the gym. And I say we because my parents helped me so much. But I was the sole owner of the gym. I didn't have a business partner. Their names weren't on anything. Only my name was on the lease, the building, the business license. It was just me, myself, and I. And I remember I got so much hate from certain people for opening up a gym. I remember there was another person I'd gone to high school with who opened up his own gym, and I remember messaging him being like, hey, like, I'm going to be opening my gym. Do you have any tips or suggestions or something you recommend? Like, this, I'm just so new to this business venture, not new to coaching. And I remember one of the first things he said was, you don't deserve to open up a gym. He said, you haven't done your time and you don't deserve it. And I was like, excuse me? And I remember he had said, you haven't been coaching in this industry long enough to deserve to open up your own gym. You haven't put in your time. And that just blew me away, because I was like, we're on the same team. Like, if you came to me and asked me something, I would help you. I want your business to be successful, extremely successful. We do two different things. And so it just blew my mind to think that people weren't going to support people trying to do what they feel called to do and do their purpose. And so I was on my own, and I learned a lot of lessons. The first couple years were hard but good. I basically lived there, which I think is what any business owner will do. I was the only coach for a really long time, so I did it all. I was the janitor, the bookkeeper, the coach, the programmer, the everything for years. And then I finally got to a point where I could start hiring some coaches. And then I got my CrossFit level 1, and we really started to grow, and we ended up affiliating with CrossFit. I got married to my husband, and we ended up affiliating with CrossFit. I don't remember, I think that was in 2016. And the gym just blew up, and it became this amazing community that was a genuine family. And some of my favorite memories, we used to do a lot of like community things together. So we would do like movie on a wall once a month. Every holiday we had Friendsgiving, and we did Christmas together, and we just did everything together at the gym. And I remember there was one Friendsgiving where we set up a whole bunch of tables, like really, really long, like Harry Potter banquet style. It was one big long table, and it was huge. It was like the whole length of the gym, and it wasn't enough. So many of the members showed up with their families, and it wasn't enough. So we were pulling boxes down to make tables, and we were using wall balls as chairs. And I just remember I stepped back and I looked, and I was like, this is what it's about. It's about this community. It's about helping other people change their lives, teaching them how to change their lives and how to put that into action, and how what you learn in the gym doesn't just apply here, but it applies outside of it. And the love and the care that we all had for one another, that went so much farther than those four walls. You know, it became a place where, like, you know, oh, so-and-so's, you know, sick, like, let's make sure we take them some soup, or let's, you know, someone just had a baby, like, you know, can we go do her laundry, or can we bring her some food, or can we, you know, watch her other kids and give her a day of rest with the newborn. Like, it just became this place of, you'd come in, you'd give each other a big hug, you would do this awful workout, and you would sweat out your demons in the gym, and then afterwards you were back to being family again. And it was incredible. And it was definitely a God thing. we got to a season where we had over 100 members, and it was a really amazing thing that God did and grew and let me be a vessel for that. And I'm thankful for the coaches that came alongside me and stayed with me the whole time. You know exactly who you are. And you guys, the gym wouldn't have been what it was without you guys. And I think it's incredible to see that if you move, God will move, right? Like, we put one foot in front of the other and we were chasing the dream, and it was His timing and His will, and we were doing everything we could, and it worked out, and it paid off in dividends. But it's also important to know that you have your own actions that you deal with in that, and you have things in that you play a role in as well. And I say that because I ended up kind of being my own demise to the gift that I feel God gave me because of my own choices. And life happens, things happen, people learn and grow. I was very young. I still feel young. But I ended up starting to butt heads with some of the coaches, and I wasn't being the owner and the boss that I needed to be. And I wasn't listening. I was listening to what people were saying, but I wasn't hearing them, and I wasn't taking it to heart. And I ended up pushing people away and losing people because of my pride and stubbornness. And those relationships are fine now, but it was a detriment to the gym. And then I ended up being my own worst enemy. So the gym opened in 2013. It was a whole journey to get there. Then we had our first child in 2018. And in 2019, we found out that my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, which I've talked about before. But my parents were the primary babysitters for our son. And because their business was basically a 2-minute walk away, it was perfect because I would go and coach or go into the office and work, and they would watch him for me at their place of business, or they would come over and let him play in the gym while I did what I needed to. But it was just that back and forth relationship. And when she got diagnosed with cancer, it was very far along, and it was immediate actions, immediate chemo, surgeries. And I lost my only babysitter. And at the time, I was working at the hospital, and my husband was working shift work. So on top of owning a business and having a 1-year-old and working shift work a couple times a month, it was a lot to handle basically by myself when I lost them being able to help me. And we couldn't afford to put him in daycare or anything like that. And so I started showing up to the gym less and less and less, and being less and less involved. And at the time, my mom didn't want she didn't want us to tell anybody that she had cancer, and it was her cancer, her journey. So we respected that. But not being able to tell people about it was hard because I just was kind of slowly disappearing, and people just didn't know why. They didn't understand why. Like, I went from living there and being there all the time. Sorry, podcast stopped recording. Did this last week. Just a sec. So being there all the time to suddenly not showing up. And then in the midst of all this, some life things happened, and I started developing my phobias and anxieties. And they got to the point where I couldn't bring myself to step foot into the gym because it was too dirty and it was too scary. And you can't run a business and be the head coach and never show up. You can't. Members were asking where I was. Family was taking over. I was having like panic attacks at the idea of having to show up at the gym to coach a class or to show face. And it it was awful. My mom was dying. I mean, this went on from, it was like August of 2019, July or August of 2009, I think August, maybe September. Anyway, August, September 2019 we closed in February of 2020. So let's just say August, September, October, November, December, January. So 5 months of me slowly declining, never showing up, no more events, no more community things. And it was just bad. People asking where I was and me lying about it. And meanwhile, us being like, oh my gosh, like, is our mother gonna die? Is our mom gonna die from this cancer? Because she got really, really bad at one point. And I really thought she was gonna die. And God did a miracle, and that's another story for another time. She didn't die, and she's here with us today, and she's healthy as ever. Thank the Lord. But it was really, really bad. And then the pandemic happened. So with all those things combined, in February of 2020, we ended up closing the gym. And that, still to this day, is one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I get very sad because I'm not proud of the way that I did it. I'm not proud of the way I went about it, and I'm not proud of myself for how I handled it, because I was in such a dark, dark place. And it was a big surprise to a lot of the members there. And I made the decision to close it, and we have to start selling equipment and all these things, and I never stepped foot in that place. Like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't say goodbye. I get emotional about it now because I've still never done it. I've gone back and I've driven past it, but it was something I was so ashamed of and so embarrassed of that I felt like I had failed. It just felt like another thing I had failed. Like, I failed my first marriage, and then I failed my business. And it just felt like one more thing that I failed at, that I couldn't succeed in, that I couldn't be great at. And it rocked me. And there's so many people that are like, you did the right thing. You had to take care of your mom, you had to take care of yourself, but sometimes it doesn't feel like the right thing. And it's hard. And I remember I swore that I would never coach people again. I swore that I would have nothing to do with health and fitness, that I was done, that was a road that I would never walk down again because I was such a disappointment. And in 2021, while my husband was deployed, I remembered how much I missed it. How much I missed people, how much I missed that interaction, how much I miss loving people, pouring into them, showing them that they can do something when they think that they can't. And that's when I started coaching people online. And it's still a weird place for me to be. I would love to open a gym again. I would love nothing more than that. Then there's the other part of me that's terrified because I have kids and I want them to be my whole world. And I think moms, you'll understand when you feel stuck sometimes between a dream that you have career-wise and being the best mom there is. Because sometimes it doesn't always feel possible. At least to me. I think there's always one category will suffer. If you go full-fledged on your career side, your kids will suffer. I don't mean that in a bad, horrible suffering way, but they're gonna have to go in daycare, or they're gonna have a babysitter, or it's less time with them because you're putting all your time and effort into this business venture or your career, right? And then vice versa. If you put 100% of your time into your kids, then you're losing over here, and it's a weird tug of war to try and deal with. And that's kind of how I ended up where I'm at now with doing these, because I want to help people so badly, but I want to 100% be here for my kids. So it was just the decision of, I'm going to coach people online, even though it's not what I like. I mean, I like it, but I would much rather see you in person. I would much rather give you a hug when you walk in the door. I'd much rather cheer you on face to face and hand you the weights and be there for you in the moment than typing, messaging you from a screen. But I also want to be there for my kids. So that's the story of, it's really long, sorry, these are really long, of opening a business by myself at 23 and how I did it and kind of what it looked like, and it closing and ending up where I am today. That being said, I do coach people online. It's called Driven Fitness. It is fitness on purpose, with a purpose. I do one-on-one nutrition coaching. There's 3 workout tracks. There's functional fitness, functional bodybuilding, and express workouts, which are 30 minutes or less. Those are my favorite. And it's only $5 a month. I also have had this problem in my entire time of owning a business where I don't charge enough, but it's because I just can't justify it. I think everyone should have access to great fitness and nutrition coaching, and it shouldn't be so expensive that they feel they can't get the help that they're desperately wanting. So if you're interested in that at all, please click the link in the description. If not, it's totally fine. I am so thankful for you listening and watching, and I ask that you please like and subscribe. It does help me out, but if not, oh well. And I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you, and just remember to take it one day at a time. Bye, guys.